Hi everyone. In this video we're going to talk about how we can evaluate our four other trig functions that are not sine and cosine. So what I have written here is a quick table that just reminds us what the definitions of our four functions are. So remember that tangent of theta is defined to be sine of theta divided by cosine of theta. Cotangent of theta is cosine of theta divided by sine of theta. Secant of theta is 1 divided by cosine theta. And cosecant theta is 1 divided by sine theta. And so these four values, they all come back and are defined in terms of sine and cosine. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about sine and cosine. What do they mean? And often in trigonometry, what it comes down to is putting everything back in terms of sine and cosine. So this is a helpful table. Let's go ahead and shrink it down and let's put it over here just so we can remember. All right, so the example that I want to walk through is this one here. What is tangent of pi over 3? Okay. So if you took this and you plugged it into Desmos, it's going to give you a decimal, as it usually does. But this is a quick method to figure out what the exact value for tangent of pi over 3 is going to be. So the first thing that we do is we're going to rewrite this in terms of sine and cosine. So I know that my theta is pi over 3. So this is going to be equal to the sine of pi over 3 divided by the cosine of pi over 3. Okay. And I already wrote out our table for us, but a couple videos back, if you didn't watch it, I have a nice way to recreate this table up here. So I wrote it down really quickly for us, and so I can go over here and just look up what these values are. So sine of pi over 3, this is equal to the square root of 3 divided by 2. Okay, so I have the square root of 3 divided by 2. And my denominator, cosine of pi over 3. So cosine of pi over 3 is down here. This is 1/2. All right, so 1 divided by 2. All right, so a lot of us get stuck when we have this, when we have a fraction inside of a fraction. But as is often the case when you have a lot of fractions, what will help get you out of this is remembering that dividing is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So this is really the same as the square root of 3 divided by 2 multiplied by the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2 over 1. Okay. So what I see here is some really nice stuff happens. My 2's cancel. Dividing by 1 doesn't change anything. So the tangent of pi over 3, the exact value is just the square root of 3. Right. All right. So let's go ahead and clean this up, and we'll do another example. Here we go. What is the exact value of secant of 2 pi over 3? So step one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break everything down in terms of sine and cosine. So I'll come over here, and secant of theta is the same as 1 over cosine theta. So this is 1 divided by cosine of 2 pi over 3. All right, so what this problem has now become is figuring out what is cosine of 2 pi over 3. So if you have seen the previous video to this one, we actually walked through this process. We know that this isn't, 2 pi over 3 isn't one of our reference angles, but what I can do is I can use this to figure out what it is. So in order to do that, the first thing that I need is I need to know what is my reference angle. And the second thing I need to know is what is my quadrant. Right, so we're thinking about 2 pi over 3. So my denominator is 3, so I get a pi over 3 over here. This is going to be my reference angle. Okay, so let's write this in. Reference angle is pi over 3. My quadrant, 2 pi over 3 lives in quadrant 2. Quadrant 2. Okay. So what this tells me is cosine of 2 pi over 3, right, so I'm going to write this in 1 divided by, and so cosine of 2 pi over 3, well, it's going to have the number 1/2, right, so this is going to be a 1/2 in here, and the sine is whatever's in quadrant 2. So in quadrant 2, if we write this, draw a picture really quickly, so quadrant 2 is over here. You can see that my x values are negative. So if I think about this part over here, my x values are negative. And so this is negative 1/2. So again, we have this fraction inside of a fraction, but dividing is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So this is the same as 1 times negative 2 over 1. Okay, well, 1 times anything, it's not going to change it. Dividing by 1 is not going to change it. So this comes out to just be negative 2. Okay, so secant of 2 pi over 3 is negative 2. All right, so I hope this helps out. I'll see you next time.